Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? I think I speak for every Saints fan when I say we love CJ Gardner-Johnson. When the Saints drafted him out of Florida, I remember it very well because I remember the player so well at Florida. And I remember thinking I was so excited when the Saints drafted him because he's a guy I absolutely hated when he was on the other team. But he's the guy you love when he's on your team. And so when they traded him, I was devastated because I love the player. But I also understood that if you were the Saints and you didn't feel like you were going to be able to reach a free agent agreement with CJ GardnerJohnson, that you trade him to recoup assets for him instead of letting him walk in free agency for nothing. So a year ago, or in August in camp when they made the deal, I understood it. I didn't love it, but understood it. Now, CJ GardnerJohnson is on the move again, which complicates his story even further. Here's Ian Rappaport, by the way, today on Monday, with what happened with explaining what happened here with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and the Eagles, etc.
Pretty good situation for Gardner-Johnson. He ends up back with Aaron Glenn and some other people that he was with the New Orleans Saints. So certainly some familiarity there. Should be able to fit right in and succeed. But you're right, obviously very, very difficult free agency for Gardner-Johnson. I know the Saints, when he was back with them before they ended up trading him, made a long-term contract extension offer to him. Did not accept it. They ended up trading him, was with the Eagles, had a successful season. They made an offer to him before free agency. What happens is there's only so much money and there's only so many chairs. So the Eagles make an offer to him. He does not accept it. They say, okay, they move on. They bring back Darius Slay. They bring back James Bradbury. And at that point, it was essentially done, leaving him with the best option being to land with the Detroit Lions.
Okay. So Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's on the move again. Just this past camp, the Eagles traded 2 picks for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. The Saints got a 2023 5, and a 2024 6 in exchange for CJ Gardner-Johnson and a 2025 7th rounder. It was, considering the caliber of the player, it felt like light compensation, but from the Saints' perspective, they looked at it like we got something for him as opposed to getting nothing for him this offseason because they knew that they had reached their limit of what they were willing to pay, and it wasn't something he was willing to accept. And then you factor in all of the other stuff that went along with it, like fighting with Michael Thomas at practice, and then there were other stories of instances with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and teammates, etc., in the locker room, him yelling about his money, and these were all things that were just rumored and said. And so if you're the Saints front office, you're looking and saying, okay, well, we don't want this contract situation to become a locker room issue during the 2022 season. We know we're not going to be able to sign him after this year because we're so far apart on terms of the contract. Let's trade him now and get something for him. And that's what the Saints did, in essence. So I started thinking about this today with the benefit now of hindsight. Another year removed, or a season removed, right? Now we're in the free agent period where Chauncey Gardner-Johnson would be a free agent, right? Had he stayed with the Saints, you'd be in the same situation. And we can look at it now and see that the Eagles, another team, and I think we could all agree right now, I mean, the Eagles are the cream of the crop in the NFC. It's Eagles and Niners as far as the best rosters, the 2 teams that played in the NFC Championship game. And, of course, if Philly went to the Super Bowl this year. But Philly, with that roster, looked at Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, made an offer to him, just like the Saints did. The Saints made a long-term free agent offer to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He said no. He wanted more money. The Eagles now make an offer. He turns that down. Says, I want more. So consecutive off seasons now, he's had an opportunity to sign a long-term deal, and in consecutive seasons now, He's turned that down. He played on the final year of a rookie deal. And now is going to play in 2023 without a long-term contract and play on a one-year deal at $8 million. This is so perplexing to me. But I also think, in a way, it's kind of validating for what the Saints did. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was on a rookie deal of 4 years, $3.3 million. So that was his rookie contract. It was 4 years, $3.3 million. He got $784 at signing. The average base was $826. So my point is, he didn't make a ton of money. I mean, over his first 4 years in the league, he made $3.3 million total. That's before agent fees, before taxes, all that stuff. So this was his first opportunity to get paid, and he's getting a 1 year, $8 million deal. For comparison's sake, like, Tyrann Mathieu is making more than $9 million a year in New Orleans. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is a 25-year-old in his prime, led the NFL in interceptions this year, despite missing 5 games with a lacerated kidney, and is getting less on a 1 year deal than Tyrann Mathieu is being paid in New Orleans. For what it's worth, we referenced Spotrac, right, which lists, market value for players, what they estimate the market value would be. They estimate Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's market value at $13.3 million per. The contract that they would suggest is a 5-year, $66 million deal, averaging out to $13.3 million. He ain't sniffing that on a 1 year, $8 million contract. So I think you have to keep coming back and saying, why? Like, the fact that now another team, a team for whom he played, helped get to the Super Bowl, led the NFL in pass defense, led the NFL in the Eagles led the NFL in pass defense, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson led the NFL in interceptions despite missing 5 games, and they're not willing to invest the number that he wanted. They made him an offer, and he looked and said, I want more. So they were like, cool, we'll move on. We'll sign James Bradberry and Darius Slay, which they did. It is very strange to see this play out the way that it has. When you look at safeties, the highest paid safeties in the NFL, in the average value, Derwin James is at the top at $19.1 million per. Minkah Fitzpatrick's at $18.4. Jamal Adams at $17.6. Kevin Byard's at $14.1. Marcus Williams at $14 million. I mean, that's the kind of rarefied air that you'd be considering right now with a guy like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. But the deal he's taking in Detroit has him as the 20th highest paid safety in the NFL. One spot behind Marcus May, by the way, who's making $7.5 per year on average at a $22.5 million deal with the New Orleans Saints. So it is bizarre to see this the way it is, but in a way, I think it's affirming of what the Saints did in their decision to move on, because now you have another team, a team that gave up assets to get Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, thinking they'd have him and be able to sign him, and now they weren't able to agree to an extension with him as well. So they gave up 2 draft picks to get a player on a rent deal for 1 year, basically. Super affordably, but they gave up 2 picks to have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson for 1 year and then didn't sign him to a long-term contract. I think Philly validated the Saints' decision. Obviously, Chauncey wanted more money than New Orleans was willing to pay, so they got assets for him, and Philly validated the Saints' decision by not paying, by essentially agreeing with the Saints' valuation and not overpaying for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Now, him going to Detroit makes a lot of sense. Dan Campbell is the head coach. Aaron Glenn's the defensive coordinator. Both of them were in New Orleans. Glenn was the secondary coach. Campbell was on the staff with Sean Payton as well. And he was there. They were both there for 2 years in New Orleans with Chauncey before they went as a tandem there to Detroit. But you're talking about a player who certainly has outperformed the one-year deal that he's getting, and it begs the question, why? Why then isn't there a stronger market for a player of his caliber? And it really begs the question of, are there personality, locker room issues with this guy that have just become known in the NFL, such that nobody wants to make that big long-term investment in him? Can he play? Absolutely. And he did a magnificent job this year in Philly transitioning from corner to safety. I mean, he was an awesome nickel for New Orleans, and he transitioned, played safety in Philly this year. So he's proven to be versatile. He's proven to be obviously productive, intense, all the things you want. And nobody will pay him. Nobody will pay him what he wants. Why? Is his ask that ridiculous? Don't know. Or maybe is it just that for this particular player and whatever baggage may come with him, they're not willing to accompany that dollar figure with him? I mean, we saw the Jets trade Jamal Adams to Seattle for multiple number one picks. And now I get it, it's a free safety, but multiple ones and a contract that's paying Jamal Adams $70 million, 17.6 per year. It defies logical explanation that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, I'm not saying he's going to get Jamal Adams money, but the fact that nobody in this league was willing to invest a long-term deal into that player. Maybe he's getting bad advice. I don't know. But all of the circumstances surrounding it, you can look back with hindsight now and realize if you're the Saints, you made the right decision. As much as you hate it because you love the player, the Saints made the right decision. They traded him. They got something for him instead of watching him walk in free agency this year, which is what happened to Philly. So, wish him well. Wish he was still in New Orleans. Wish it made sense for him to be in New Orleans. But the Saints moved on. They drafted Alontae Taylor. And I'm going to tell you, man, that worked out okay this year. Alontae Taylor proved to be super versatile on the outside, in the slot. And the Saints are moving on with another really talented young player. So, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, he's on the move again. 1-year deal in Detroit. See if next year he might finally be able to cash in. Who's going to pay him? It remains to be seen. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.